Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. He is an author, speaker, champions mindset mentor, and a father of four who has been in the education industry for over 30 years. He has a master's degree in special education, is certified in advanced behavioral modeling, and is a master NLP or neuro linguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy practitioner, and a certified mental wellness coach, and a diplomat with American Institute of Stress. He has been a skier for 56 years, has walked across burning coals with Tony Robbins on 3 different occasions, and loves traveling. He has been a baseball player or coach for 50 years. His greatest passion is to see teenagers become champions not only on the athletic field and in the classroom, but most importantly in life. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Chuck Barnard. How are you, Chuck?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah, definitely. Well, happy to have you here. And oh my God, all those credentials and a lot of different things that you have going on for yourself, and I'm sure that didn't come easy. Yet, before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your background and your upbringing, because I think that that is very important where we came from to help us determine where we want to go in life. So, tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure. You know, I make no bones about it. I was very blessed to be born into the family I was born into, the time I was born into. I had a great childhood, really wonderful family. So, in many ways, life was really good to me for for a long time, and I like recognize now how fortunate I was with all that. When I got into college, but my first major life change, right? As you kind of go, but I had my social safety net of my friends groups. I went to college at the local university with all my friends and all that. But when I graduated from college, I had that last year of college, I kind of decided that I was going to go into the Navy. I was going to learn to be a Navy pilot.
Hmm.
And that summer, I was getting myself ready to go to boot camp. And then I got a letter from the U.S. Navy towards the end of August telling me that I didn't get in. I wasn't accepted. And I was like, wow. Because next 5 years of my life, it was all planned out, right? So, but within an hour of that phone call, I got a call from that letter. I got a phone call from the Auburn Public Library telling me that a book I reserved was in. And I hadn't reserved a book. But my mom and I had listened to this young guy. This is back in 1986. We listened to this young guy a few weeks earlier pushing his book on this new psychology. We were both like, wow, this is really cool stuff. Well, so I went down, got the book, read it cover to cover, and that book changed the direction of my life. The book was Unlimited Power. The author was Tony Robbins. And I became determined I wanted to meet Tony Robbins. So that spring of 1987, I packed up my bags with a plan to go out to California and meet Tony Robbins. And that was quite an adventure. Didn't always go the way I had planned it, but by the end of the summer, I came home with a certificate saying I was certified in neurolinguistic programming by Tony Robbins. And next 5 years of my life were a struggle to try to be Tony Robbins of the East Coast, right? He was a young guy, a few years older than me. He was doing it in California. I'm like, I could do it in Maine. And I had no clues what I was doing. It was a struggle, but one thing led to another. And the guiding hand of God was on me. And I ended up getting into education, working with kids who had a lot of challenges in education. That's where I spent the 30 years of my professional life. It's where I met my wife. And it is kind of what got me to the point where I'm at today.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. And let's talk about the shift, the mind shift, right? I love the fact that you are focusing on really, you know, kids and or young adults really winning on life, not just at school and personal life, but just in life in general. So let's talk about something that happened to you because I think that's huge and it can happen really at any time in our lives. And in this case, you're trying to go to the Navy and they don't you don't get accepted and you see the letter and that a lot for a lot of people that would be very not only overwhelming not seeing that you're going to be able to do that but it really disappointing to say hey well this is what I wanted to do and I had my life planned out based on that. Now what did I do? How did I you know come back and figure something else? Let's talk about that because I think that happens a lot in life in general. Yeah, it doesn't matter at which stage where you're planned for something, it doesn't go that way, and now you're like, okay, what did I do next? Now I'm stuck. I cannot move forward, right? How can people utilize that and rather than uh, falling apart, utilize that to be able to get to the next step in life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I kind of break it down into three parts. So over the years working with kids, I worked with students who were outliers, right? They really struggled with school, whether it was a day treatment program I started myself or taking over an alternative program that was created. They hired me to run that. Ultimately, what we had to do with those kids was get them to shift their mindset, which is essentially the beliefs that you have, right?
Hmm.
So you're coming in, you're carrying a lot of beliefs, and so many young people have these beliefs that are really negative. They aren't smart. I'm not good enough looking. I'm not athletic enough. I can't make well, all these negative talks, and we've got to get them in a place where they begin to think about those labels that they've accepted of themselves. So I talk a lot with the kids and all about self, right? That's the first kind of thing you need to begin to take ownership on. And we need to look at what are those labels that you have? What are those beliefs you have? What are those emotions you're still holding on to that aren't helping you? They aren't supporting you. Once we do that, we can show them how to take ownership and learn from those, but let go of the emotions, let go of the beliefs, let go of the labels. Um, and then I talk a lot about building the habits around um, daily rituals, morning and evening rituals. And there's one student in particular who really stands out, who encapsulates all of this. And she was, I had her, two of her uncles, I had her sister. She came from a long line. There are a number of aunts and uncles before I had her, before I even came into the district I was working in. And none of them had completed high school. There was a long history of alcoholism and drug abuse, depression and anxiety. And she was one who came in with that same chip on her shoulder, that same history, that same baggage. And like her uncles and her sister before, when we had her in middle school, we had like we really kind of interrupted that pattern. But there was no program like ours in the high school, and we were worried. And when I say we, the staff I worked with, that she was going to end up getting to high school without finishing the work that she needed to do. But we had done enough with those beliefs, and she had had enough um, negative imagery of like, I
Hmm.
don't want that. And we'd given her enough tools to begin to change her own thinking and to mantras and some of these habits I talk about, morning rituals where you fill yourself with good thoughts, good stuff. She was beginning to do that. And she moved 4 times in 3 years of high school. And she didn't just become the first person in her family to graduate high school, she actually graduated a year early.
Wow.
And then, as a several years later, as a young woman, we had kept in touch over the years through Facebook and other things, and we would get together with the teaching partner I had at the time and talk. And in 2022, I faced tragedy in my own life. I lost my wife to cancer, which was a shock, blow. She knew about that. In December of that year, she lost her brother to a drug overdose and her grandmother within 2 week period of time just before Christmas. And we kept in touch, and she knew I'd lost my wife. So she was kind of reaching out. She was spiraling down, getting caught up in the depression that kind of comes with that. But she said that what finally helped her out most was through these conversations was remembering a lot of what we talked about with she is not the labels, those negative labels. She's not all that baggage that came with her family. She can, by changing her thinking, get through all this. And she did. She pulled out of it.
Mm.
She's a mom. She's got a 1 year old boy now, and she's been able to escape that trap that so many others of her family did by taking control of her thinking and her habits. And those are two essential things I preach all the time.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I agree with you. I mean, I do agree with you. It's there's I like this this African proverb that says when there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm, right? And when I think of that, it reminds me of the fact that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what's going on in the external world. I mean, it matters. Yet, what matters more is how you interpret that and or how you go about dealing with whatever is happening on the external world. And so I think that that's huge from that perspective. Let's talk about a little bit about not that you mentioned that I think is important to also recognize that not only people got to be able to bounce back from disappointments of, hey, you didn't get into this college, you didn't get the job you were looking for, the wife or girlfriend or whatever significant other you were going after said no to you, right? So there's a lot of different things, and a lot of it comes down to what you just mentioned, that those rituals, those habits, those things, daily things that you got to do to do that. Then there's this other part that's kind of more on the materialistic aspect of disappointment. Certain things that didn't happen the way you want it to happen. For you, which I think is huge, is you have to overcome the loss of your wife of 28 years to cancer, right? That by itself, now that you're not talking about a materialistic thing. You're talking about a human being that you share so many different levels of intimacy and love and plans that now is like that's gone. And so that's also, I think, a real thing that a lot of people face. Whether it's a mom or sister or brother, some family member. How do we come out of that? How do we, get up the next day with that hope and that faith of, yeah, I gotta get up and do something. I gotta get up and do something instead of just laying there and not doing anything about it.
Yeah, it's, the habits that I had built in my life helped a lot, but there was, I'll be honest, right? I began to question a lot of what I'm doing now. I had started before my wife had cancer with the idea that when we retired, it was going to be a second stream of income for me, right? It was going to be something I could do in my retirement. I do some of the public speaking, I do the coaching. And when she passed, I lost that. And some of the fear of being alone, the fear, some of those things were cropping up. So those rituals I had though of exercise, prayer, meditation, the faith I had, family to fall back on, it was those things, it's hard to kind of explain, but they kind of take over to a certain extent in that I know I was in control of my thoughts and my thinking. And then when, like with this former student, and then my son wrote a beautiful piece at the end of that year in December. And my son was in college at the time, and he was a baseball guy like me, right? Loved baseball, but he was at a school that was it was one of the top 10 schools in the country, Division III baseball, and it was a stretch for him, right? Like people said, oh, you'll never even make the team, and he played for 2 years. But that fall, he got cut from the team after his mom had passed. He then got cut, and he was struggling. But he wrote this piece on social media at the end of December, basically saying, all of you know me know that 2022 sucked. I
Mm,
lost two of the most important things in my life. I lost my mom. I lost baseball. I began to get down, but I'm not gonna hang my head. These were two of the best things, most important things in my life. I will always remember them, cherish them. I'm so grateful I had them. 2023, bring it on.
mm.
And reading that kind of, you need that, right? Those are some of those things that as you go through, you begin to grab and you look to other role models, other people to help bring you out. So you aren't doing it all on your own. And those rituals I have are part of that. So part of that is looking for those sort of people, other people who've gone through it, because I totally believe in the power of synergy, right? When you see other people who've done it and gone through it, that helps you. And I used to show my students every year, beginning a video of Nick Vujicic, and I don't know how familiar your audience might even be with Nick Vujicic, but he's one of the top motivational speakers in the world today. He was born with no arms, no legs,
Mhm.
and remembering people like him who like, all right, maybe I don't have it so bad, right? And it just helps you get different perspectives and then to move forward. And it's again that is a piece of what I advocate for rituals is is in that morning and evening where you do some of that personal growth work and meditation work, and you're looking for people like that, looking for the models. You're reaching out to people. It's there's no shame in asking for help.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? I mean, people asking for help and maybe more so uh, kids, right? Or teenagers, might be a little bit hard to reach out and 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 ask for help. And I think part of it too with the amount of social media that we have now is like everybody's getting judged. Everybody's getting, called out, and it's like I don't want to put my garbage out because then I'm gonna be seen as a bad person, or they're gonna think less of me, right? And I believe that unfortunately, while social media might be good in one sense, it also has brought this level of not being authentic with yourself and being honest with yourself because you're trying to put a facet or a face of who you're not, right? And more so maybe you see that with kids. Tell me about the book you author. What's the premise of that book or books?
Yeah. So the premise of the book is I take a real people, real stories, real families, kind of make composite families, the Jackson family. The book title is Confidence for Teens, a new chapter for the family. But I weave these stories through the Jackson family who meet somebody like I did actually when I was younger, um, who who becomes a mentor to them and teaches them a lot of like what I am now about trying to or working to teach teens and their families. So I take them, and the stories I tell in there are real stories that happen to people I know or know of, and I weave that into the story of this family, the Jackson family.
Okay, no, awesome, awesome. So are you not primarily working with the kids or really all kinds of people, any
Yeah,
age?
Wonderful question, because my heart and my passion is always with the teens, but
Yeah.
because of the nature of it, I'm talking to parents a lot, right? So
Gotcha.
it's the parents who I do a lot of talking with and dealing with, and I, while their concerns about their teenagers, I do everything in my power, incentivize as much as I can to say we really need to do this together. This is a team approach. So you have
Hmm.
your concerns about your teenager, fantastic. You kind of doing this with them, and they see you going through a lot of what we do together. It's going to increase your bond tremendously. Um, so my my target, my passion is working with the teens, but it really is a team approach and a family approach. And the parents gain so much from the process when it wasn't even about them.
Right.
It's inevitable that when they sit down and we go through some of these things, like just their own self-evaluation, their own fears, their own emotions, their own labels that they've carried with them since high school years or years, what have you. And they begin to look at those. It's like, wow, I didn't realize how much I would also grow from that. And then, when you do that with your kid and they share some of the things, it's it's a powerful
Yeah,
experience
that's
for
huge.
everybody. So,
I can only imagine
kind of
that.
in short, to
Yeah. For sure, I can only imagine the impact that the parents
I'm
are having
sorry,
too, because right, that impact that they're having. I can only imagine because, like you said, while you're working with teens, a lot of times, working through the parents indirectly, right, as you said, it's a family effort. Yet working through the parents indirectly is really helping shape up, the outcome of what you're trying to accomplish with the teens, and more so, I think also the parents having a different point of view and seeing things from a different perspective, and maybe even getting to some of those rituals that maybe they're not used to, right, doing and practicing prior to meeting with you.
yeah, no, absolutely. And, we all have, and I'm going to go back to those habits again, because it took me a long time to kind of build those in my life, but we all have a morning habit and an evening habit. Like, we go through the same thing, our weekday one might be different than a vacation one or a weekend one, but we have these habits, but
Yeah,
they aren't, for the vast majority of people, they aren't purposeful. There's no plan behind them. They aren't doing anything to help reinforce a mindset that we want to build. So when parents try to do that with their kids and help empower the kids to build that, it's powerful. It's not easy. Like, I got 4 young adult kids who saw me begin to build my habits, who I worked hard to help them try to build some of their habits, but they they don't have the same habits I do, which is okay, but they struggled. It's it's easier to fall out of them
right.
than it is to maintain them. So, but it's that power of synergy and that accountability teams that families provide that make all the difference. A kid trying to do it on their own, man, is really, really hard.
Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
so
Yeah, for sure. Talk about so somebody's coming to you. I'm assuming parents or maybe even the teenagers are coming to you. Tell me, are there all customizable approaches that you take with each family, or more or less it's the same time frame? Just kind of walk me through maybe a basic one. Somebody's coming to you. How do you approach that so people can kind of get an idea of what to expect working with you?
yeah, no, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that, because there's the initial part is there's a lot of data getting right. Like, I also give everybody some assessments on mindset, stress, where they at and how they manage stress. And we talk about what habits they have. So in that first, my programs are kind of broken up to three. So there's the mindset transformation program, which is kind of this initial offering, where this is where we begin to take ownership and find out where people are at, and that the time frame for that can vary some, because depending on what people are bringing in, depending on what we have to kind of clear out and all that. So up front, that's where some of that conversation is. There's a flat fee for it, regardless of how long it takes.
Mm.
Pretty sure the number of hours will fall in between the certain things. But if we haven't got it all, then we keep going, right? Like it's not okay. We've done our 10-hour program, what have you. It's We're going to finish the program, which means we're going to get these things cleared out, and that is that's independent on the family, right? There's the
Hmm.
nature of it. The next program is about building those habits, and that really is, uh, it's a 10-week program. The reason it's 10 weeks is on average it takes 66 consecutive days to build a habit. And again, I say it's 10 weeks, but if we haven't got the habits built, because if that's on average, we know some people will be more, some will be less. The, the lessons are geared to spread out over 70 days.
Mm.
Those who've already have it by the end of 7 days, fantastic. You've got those extra lessons, all good. If we need to go longer, then we'll go longer to build those habits. So that's kind of how that works out. And then I offer a follow up where at the end of those 10 weeks, let's go back and revisit part one and see where are we at, right? So we're assessing 10 weeks later where you're at, what might need to be tweaked or adjusted. We do a reevaluation, and then I teach you some powerful goal setting skills. I call the design your destiny. That if we've been really effective at cleaning everything up and building those habits, then this goal setting process is really powerful. I mean, I can tell you about one high school athlete who had programmed into her mind. She was a cross country runner, was planning to run in college, but she'd never really done well in the state meet. And she wanted her senior year, she wanted to do well in the state meet. Figuring out what that was for her was a certain time that seemed reasonable. She visualized that time, visualized her place, visualized passing one of her nemesises on this one spot of the course. Everything came out exactly as she had programmed it in. And I've had that happen with a number of athletes over the years. So it can be very powerful and
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah. Do you use depend on your client, or do you use hypnotherapy and some, and then NLP practices, or you kind of combine all of them?
Yeah, I combine all of them. The most powerful tool I use in the clearing things up is timeline therapy, and it's so clean, it's simple, it's easy to teach people how to do, and when they really learn how to do it themselves, it's a powerful tool to as part of your reflection and letting go process. Now, I tell people all the time with it is I'm coaching you. Now, if you are coming with me with a diagnosed psychological disorder like PTSD or clinical depression or anxiety, then I need to have a conversation before we do any of this with anybody who you're under care with, because this process can bring up things, and we want to make sure that that's being handled in the right way. So if you're seeing somebody, then we need to have a conversation as a group about this, because it's a powerful therapeutic technique too that can be used in therapy. But I'm not doing therapy with people, right? I'm coaching you through some processes that have a powerful,
Got
and for
it.
the vast majority of us who carry around some of these sadness, some anger with us still, so it's nothing clinical. It's a great tool
Got it.
to
Okay, so
use.
you're more in the coaching side of it more than anything. You're not clearing emotions through NLP or any of that stuff. It's mostly obviously you maneuver around them, but you're more than anything coaching them, not necessarily clearing an emotion or a family member through NLP.
Correct. Correct.
Got it.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, and with the NLP, there's other things I use off after the timeline therapy to help reinforce it. There's other little techniques that I teach them that they can bring with them. Things like swish patterns and
Yep.
anchoring is an enormous one.
Huge.
That's actually one of my rituals is build positive anchors in your life. Music is a powerful one. Get some good music. Listen to it regularly. you know,
Yeah.
uh, so
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. No, that definitely that's huge, and I've been exposed to some of that stuff myself. So hence the questions. So let me ask you this: like, so people, what do you find your clients, or how do people connect with you? How do they find you if they want to, understand more about what you have to offer? How can they connect with you?
yeah, the best way to reach me is coachchuck360.com, coachchuck360.com. And I send people there because it's got everything there. It's all my social media, my YouTube channel, and my websites. And I have a number of different websites. So going there is the best way. And if it's all right, can I offer a free gift to your audience? Would that be
Yeah,
fine?
definitely, for sure.
So
Appreciate
if
it.
they want it on that site, there's a place where they can contact me section and they can send me a text, best email, first last name, and just if they put Caesar's podcast or best, the name of your podcast, send to an item they can download. It's all about building those habits and rituals. So it's kind of a graphic organizer, a something that they can put up on the wall that can give them the clues, the secrets to building those habits and in the rituals in their life that did me so well and have helped out so many of my students. So if they want to just text me their first and last name, best email, I'll get that link to them.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's awesome. Talk about rituals and habits. Let's talk about your rituals, your habits. What are the ones that you practice every day?
Yeah, so the principles I have that I say everybody should be doing, there should be some sort of body movement. So for me, I actually in the morning I do a workout. So you don't necessarily have to do a workout, it be something like a simple stretching thing, but just to get your body going. Mindfulness, meditation, prayer, depending on your religious beliefs, may factor that in. Um, Gratitude, powerful one. Anchoring, breath work. And with anchoring, I think I mentioned music's a powerful thing. Try to listen to some good music. In
Yeah.
the evening, there's some stretching again, mindfulness and reflection, journaling. I am hugely encourage people to start a practice of journaling. And it does not have to be a time consuming thing. Just it can be quite simple, getting some thoughts down on paper and writing it down is a big deal too. Um, and then I do breath work in the evening and mindfulness in the evening as well. So those are the big pieces: body, mind, spirit, touching all of those.
I love that. I love that. What are some for the ones that people that are listening right now? What are some things that they can start doing now or today? Assuming somebody's going through some sort of challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what can they start doing to start overcoming that challenge?
One of the things I would recommend people to begin to do is one of the first things is take a look at how you're spending your time. Do a little time inventory. It's a great activity because it's amazing what it tells you about when push comes to shove, what you really value too,
Mm,
right? Because you're going to end up spending time on things you value. And sometimes it's comfort things, right? So a little time analysis, and then begin to ask yourself, all right, what are some of these emotions? What are some of the things I believe about who I am, about what I can do, what I can accomplish? And that awareness, getting that down on paper, that awareness is the first step. When you begin to become aware of it, then all of a sudden you can begin to realize, oh, geez, there it is again, that belief popping up. And it's amazing what that in and of itself can do. That's always been my first step with students.
mm.
And it's amazing what happens when they first begin to be aware of like, wow, I didn't realize I believe that. And that awareness is important. So that would be my challenge to people. Just a couple those two things. Uh, do that self inventory.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. That's huge, man. I love that. Any other best business practices that teenagers can do? I know the biggest challenge I think for teenagers is like, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate from high school and going to college, right? And I think
Yeah,
part of the biggest stress that teenagers might have is one, I'm getting ready for graduation. Number two, what's going to be my life after high school, right? And so I believe that maybe trying to give teenagers an idea of what that would be for them and how they can start focusing, right? Because there's a lot of external factors that might be pushing them elsewhere, right? If they don't have the right focus. What are some things that you come across with the people you're coaching that can gear them and help them handle those two things?
yeah. Kind of piggybacking on what I kind of just said with the that self-awareness idea is, and I try not to put the words in their mouth, but inevitably what's lingering in people's background, particularly kids as they're gearing up for that next stage, whether it's going to college or something else,
Mm-hmm.
it's the emotion of fear.
Mm.
And it is it's I term it as irrational fear. And the reason I say that is because it's coming from what they are imagining will happen in the future. So the fear is based on some negative they're imagining in their own mind. And when you begin to become aware of that and think about that, that's going to be the first step in interrupting that.
Mm.
And asking your question, this is a powerful question I've asked kids over years. And the first response I almost always get when I say, "How do you do that?" is like, "Huh?" And once they do that, they've interrupted that pattern. What do you mean, how do I do that? How do you create fear in your life? Like, I don't know, right? That's your response. So once you begin to say, how do I do that? Are you picturing something? Are you saying something to yourself? Now they're beginning to be able to get to the process, and now they're getting back in control, and that makes all the world of difference right there. Is putting them back in control of that really imagined fear.
Yeah. Chuck, I definitely love this, man. This is one of my favorite topics. I think, understanding the mind and the body and soul and really focusing on those things is huge. And I can definitely like go on forever with this topic. Anything else that you want to say to the listeners, or anything else you want to share about the things you have going on, or how they can best improve their lives before I let you go?
Well, I'd like to kind of leave them with a little story
Yeah.
that I think illustrates everything. And it happened after my wife passed away. And it was a powerful lesson, but we were going to have a service for her, and she was a very popular teacher. She had grew up in the town. She taught at the high school she graduated from, and it was going to be a big service. And we kind of knew that a lot of people wanted to pay their respects and all, but we wanted to have something more private and a little bit smaller at our house. And we had a big backyard, so we planned to have a gathering at our house. And there's one spot at people enter our backyard, small little patch, that my wife and I had always wanted to have a garden there, a flower garden. And we had planted flowers and all, but neither one of us ever really took the time or care to be a gardener. So it was always kind of overgrown with weeds. Well, you know what? I was For this service, I was going to make that a garden, and I wanted to help because, yeah, I could look at the books I have, what have you. But my sister, she knows gardening, so she came down and she really helped me plan out the garden so that it would be in bloom full year. We dug up the dirt, we put in good soil, put in plants so it would be colorful, and from spring through fall, it would be in bloom. And it was I get emotional just talking about it because it was beautiful. And it stayed in bloom to the end of the year. People talked about it. Well, that winter, I had an opportunity to change my living situation. I joked because I had young adult children who were still living at home, and I said it was easier for me to move out than to kick them out. So they they took over the house. I had another opportunity to live somewhere else that I wanted to take advantage of, and I wasn't that far away. So I, come back to visit. And that summer, early summer, I came back, went in the backyard. It was like a punch in the gut because there, that garden was once again overgrown with weeds. And at first, I'm angry at my kids, then I'm angry at myself. And the lesson there was life keeps throwing these weeds on our garden. And I had to take responsibility for weeding it. It's not a one-time thing. You need to every day take those weeds and get rid of them. It's much easier to weed your garden when you're doing it on a daily basis. And all of us have a beautiful garden of our souls that is just aching to be bloom and full bloom all the time. But far too many of us let the weeds of life choke it out. And my message is you can weed the garden, you can learn how to do it, you can identify the weeds, and you can build those habits to do it on a daily basis. So
Wow.
that's my final message.
That was a huge golden nugget, and I love it. I love that what you share, and I think that's beyond beautiful, and on top of that, there's a big lesson there, and I love that message. So thank you for sharing that. Again, it was a pleasure having you here on the podcast, and looking forward to further connecting with you down the line.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, go out and check out Chuck. Go ahead and send him a message. He's giving you a free gift. And do me a favor, also share this message with somebody else because definitely somebody needs to hear this. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.